Welcome to Knife Chats. If you like this video, please take a moment to leave a comment. Thank you. So this is another one of my videos where I'm going to try and answer a question that I get often asked on my channel. And this question comes from several people, and it's been asked a million different ways, but it really comes down to, do you actually like those cheap knives or inexpensive knives? Sometimes the question is asked kind of rudely, in which case I usually just delete it and ignore it. I'm sure I've lost a couple subscribers over that, and I don't really care. I don't need to put up with rude subscribers. But it is a question that people have asked, and it is a question worth answering. Why do I buy all these inexpensive knives out of China? Now, a lot of people will say, especially if you're just new to slip joints, one of the best things about inexpensive knives by like Rough Rider and even some of the Frost brands and stuff is that there's a wide variety of them, so it's pretty inexpensive to try the various knives and see which ones you like. For instance, here's a 3-blade jackknife, 6-blade Congress. This one's in Stag. The Rough Rider cotton sampler. What an interesting blade. Big old clasp knife. I've done a video on that. Your standard 4-blade Congress. A Coke bottle. Here's the half hawk. A lot of people love the half hawk. I like that too. 2 blades. Large, well, kind of a spear blade or a pin blade. And then the big sheep foot blade or half hawk blade, whatever you want to call it. And the one that I kind of fell in love with, a 5-inch toothpick. So all sorts of variety of knives that you can get for a relatively inexpensive price, so you can decide what you like and what you don't like. Imagine if I was doing this buying American-made case knives. Instead of like $10 a piece, we're looking at this one, something like this by case would have probably been in the $60 range. This is probably in the $80 range. Coke bottles also up in the $80 range. They don't even make a half hawk, so there's no way I'm ever going to find out. Cotton sampler, no such thing in the case lineup. You're not going to find that every day. Yeah, they make Congress knives, but the case Congress knife, it's one of those knives that goes into the vault, so you don't see it all the time, and so you have a price that goes up artificially simply because they don't make it every day. So it's kind of hard to get introduced to slip joint knives if you're relying on something like Great Eastern or Case or even Baron Son for your options to use. You're pretty much, if really all you like are trappers, you're in like Flynn with any of those companies. There's a wide variety of trappers available from American-made knife companies. But if you're looking at other patterns, they're just not around as much. So if you're interested in slip joint knives, really you're going to need to go and look at knives from some of these economy brands like Rough Rider and as much as I hate to say it, Steel Warrior, and some of the Right Edge brands and so on and so forth, because otherwise you're stuck spending tons of money for a knife that you may or may not like. So this is a great way to test out brands and test out patterns to see what you like and what you don't like. And that's one of the reasons that I do it. But there's a couple other reasons why I like to buy the inexpensive knives from China. Another reason I like it is, for instance, this little Rough Rider knife here. This is a Congress whittler, I think they called it. When I got it, I bought it to see if I liked it or not. I actually carried this knife for about 6 months, and I did kind of enjoy it, and I used it quite a bit, and I did like the sheepfoot blade on it. But when I got the knife, it had a pin blade here and a pin blade over here. And I really didn't like the idea of a whittler having 2 pin blades, especially with the nice sheepfoot blade up here. And so what did I do? Well, I took a triangular file for cutting steel and I cut off the tip here, and then I took a little grinder and I ground it down so it wouldn't be sharp, and I basically took one of the spear blades and turned it into a coping blade. So see what you got here. You've got basically a little pin blade or a drop point here and a coping blade here. So now I've got what I considered a proper Congress whittler. The knife only cost me, I think, about $10 at the time. So I really had no fear doing this. I've never did it before. I thought, well, I'll give it a shot, see what happens, if it works or not. And it worked. I ended up cutting it off, and I had a little modification done on this knife. Imagine doing that with like a Great Eastern knife. That would have cost me probably around $120, maybe less, maybe $80. But do you want to go and experiment on a blade on a Great Eastern knife for the first time ever in your life, on a knife that's going to cost that kind of money? Or are you more willing to do it on something that only costs, $9 or $10? So for making a modification on a knife or trying something new with a modification, these inexpensive knives are great. And so that's another reason I like picking up these knives. Another one back here, this one started off as a red bone scout knife. Now it has smooth white bone. It's another Rough Rider. They don't make a smooth white bone knife, but I wanted one. So I popped off the old scales, sanded, made new scales, and put them on this knife. So now I have a white smooth bone scout knife. No one makes one. I think the only people who made one was Frost in their Black Hills line, and the Frost knives really are not very good, especially the Black Hills Scout knife, because the punch blade on it, you can actually bend it with your hand, which is not a good idea. So now I have a white smooth bone scout knife that I've always wanted. I could not have done that. Baron Son makes one for $40. This one was $12. Much easier to do it with a $12 knife. I'm not worried about the amount of money I'm wasting or anything. And now if I ever feel like doing it with another knife, I can always buy another scout knife. I kind of know what I'm going to do in order to fix it. So like I said, a great experimental bed for when you're trying to do modifications on knives. One more reason why I kind of like buying these inexpensive knives. This knife is in black mother of pearl. It's a wonderful little whittler that I got. Really nice little sleeve board whittler. And that pearl looks really great. Really like it quite a bit. Good action on the knife. You got the blades that I really like. You got a coping blade on this side. You got a nice pen blade on this side, and a nice spear point up on top. Kind of reminds me of a Seahorse whittler, but not quite a Seahorse whittler. I guess I could actually, if I wanted to, do some modifying of this spear blade and turn this into a sheepfoot blade, into a Warncliffe blade. But I'm not going to do that. I really like the knife as it is, and I really like that black mother of pearl on it. When I bought this knife, it cost me all of $12. Imagine how much a black mother of pearl whittler would be from Case. I can give you a hint. It's going to be closer to $100 instead of closer to $12. Another reason why I like these little Chinese-made knives. Now, obviously, the mother of pearl you're going to find on the Case knife is going to be better than this, but I don't think it's going to be 12 times better than this, and that's the difference in price. Actually the price on these is going up, so I do like that for another reason. If you're looking for a handle material that is a little more expensive or something, it's going to be a lot cheaper on these kind of knives. And this really does look good. It looks a whole lot better in person than you're seeing on the video here. Same with Stag. I've got several knives in Stag that cost me under 20 bucks. This is a 6-blade Congress in Stag. You're not going to find that in any other line. I got this in the whitetail line. They also offer, this is a Frost brand, and it actually is a good one for a change. They also make this in Hen and Rooster in a 4-blade, I think. The Hen and Rooster one is up in the $80 range. This one, like I said, it was right around 20 bucks with 6 blades. Something you don't see all the time, and it's just a really nice knife. And the Stag is pretty darn good looking. I really like it. So another reason why I like it, because sometimes the handle material on these knives is relatively inexpensive compared to what you're going to do, or what you're going to find in an American brand or even a European brand of a higher quality. Yes, the problem with these is 440A stainless steel in both of these. But in the Hen and Rooster line, they're also using a 440 steel. In the case line, you have the Case True Sharp, which is a 420 steel. Buck 420 high carbon. Do they cut better? Do they hold an edge a little bit better than these 440s? Yeah, but not that much better. So if you're looking for something with a better quality handle material, these Asian made knives really aren't that bad of a deal. Actually, you're really scoring real well with something like that. And then two other reasons that I still like these knives, and this is something that's more of a personal level for me. Okay, let me clear all this stuff away so we can get to the other points. Here's an interesting thing I ran across. It's a mushroom knife by Rough Rider. I had never heard of them before, did not know they existed or anything else. And they came out with one several years back, and it's like, I gotta have me one of those simply because it was different. And so I went and picked it up. Interesting hawkbill blade on it. It did not have the little dangly thing here for hooking it onto your gear. It just had the hole here, the little lanyard hole. And it's got a little boar's hair brush on the end. And apparently they're used in hunting mushrooms. It's a knife for, taking care of mushrooms. Never heard of it before, but because Rough Rider came out with it, I learned about it, and then I started exploring other options about mushroom knives, and because I thought the pattern was so cool, I just knew I needed to get a couple more, and so I did. I bought them from Joker, and I bought them from a couple other companies, and also I said, this is really cool, but I got to get one that is not just a $10 economy one. So that led me to doing this, and I ended up buying one by Mercury out of Italy with olive wood handles, and it's a proper mushroom knife. You've got the jimping on the top, really nice hawkbill blade, also in 440. Most of these are in 420, even the good quality ones. And it had the dangler already attached. It has a toothpick here and a nice little boar's hair brush on the end. Looks very much like the one by Rough Rider, but you can see right away it's a much better quality with the finger hole grips and everything else on it. The jimping on the back for cleaning off the dirt and everything else. Would I have ever bought a mushroom knife if I had by Mercury, a better quality one, if I had not picked up the one by Rough Rider first? Probably not. Would I have even known they existed if it wasn't for Rough Rider? Probably not. For somebody who collects knives, curious knives, and knives of every pattern, knives of every nation, running across this in an economy brand made it possible for me to get one of a better quality from a better maker. And to me, that helped me expand my collection and expand my knowledge on on slip joint knives. And that's really one of the reasons I collect knives, is I'm interested in them. I'm interested in all types of knives. I'm not interested in just trappers or stockmans or anything like that. And so for me, having something like this around really helps, so that I can identify other knives in the pattern and learn more about them. Now, for the last point I want to make about inexpensive knives. If you're a collector of knives, you tend to find ones that you become your favorite and you want to get more of them. Typically that ends up being a particular pattern or a particular handle material. For instance, when it comes to patterns, I really like the large 5-inch toothpick. So much so that I have at least 15 of them made in the United States. However, finding them made in the United States is very, very tricky. First of all, Great Eastern, I don't believe, makes one. That leaves Case. Case makes a 5.5-inch one, but they really don't make them very often, and they have actually said that they're not going to make them anymore. So it makes it become very cost prohibitive to have more 5-inch toothpicks from Case. Now, Baron Son makes them, but I'm not crazy about the quality of all the Baron Son knives. And what I've noticed is the older Baron Son toothpicks are pretty good, but the current production ones aren't nearly as good as the older ones are. So even though they're only about $40, I'm not crazy about picking up any more of them. And again, Baron Son makes two. They make one in a wood handle and they make one in a yellow Delrin. Once you get those two, there's really not much more you can pick up. You really can't find many older USA-made toothpicks. They're just not out there. I've got the one by Camillus. Camillus had it in their catalog forever, but almost every time when you look at old catalogs, you'd see that it was out of production. So there really wasn't a whole lot of options. If I wanted to pick up large toothpicks, I was going to have to look at the economy brands, mainly Rough Rider and Marbles. Schrade makes a couple. I don't even think Frost makes many of them. I've got one by Frost, but when it came to Rough Rider, they made 5. Here's one by Schrade. This is interesting. The Schrade one is like an opposite of the one by. This is Rough Rider. This is Schrade. Notice how they're basically opposite each other. Anyway. So my choices really came down to Rough Rider and Marbles. Here's one by Marbles in tortoiseshell. We'll get to that in a minute. And then Rough Riders. And Rough Rider only made 5. This is one by Frost. This is a cheetah from a ways back. But those are my options. Either Marbles, Rough Rider, Schrade. And even then, I can get up to like 22 of these. And they're pretty solid knives, and I really like them. But one of the good things about it is this one here, I think it goes for around $10 or $12. And because I also like to carry a 5-inch toothpick, I've got one for the pocket and I have one for the collection. Now imagine trying to have, say, a Case Trapper, one for the pocket, one for the collection. That's going to cost you, let's say $108. This is going to cost me $24 for the 2 knives. One for the pocket, one for the collection. And if I lose this one, I can always take this one out of the collection and use it. So not a real problem. And that's why I also like these knives. So I like to collect toothpicks. My only option really is to pick up the ones out of China when they come out. And they don't even come out that often. The next thing I also like is, for instance, in this case, it's tortoiseshell. I like tortoiseshell. I also like Stag. I like white smoothbone. But I've been on a tortoiseshell kick for a while now. And so I can pick up all sorts of tortoiseshell. I've only got one tortoiseshell knife made in the United States. Fortunately, I got it for around $40. But typically, a tortoiseshell knife is going to cost quite a bit more in the United States, especially if you're looking at older tortoiseshell, even the imitation tortoiseshell from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. The price of those is astronomical sometimes, so you can't really afford it. But I can pick up tortoiseshell from Rough Rider and build a nice looking collection of tortoiseshell knives. And I like it, so it makes me happy. And that's really the important part, is that collecting things like this in larger numbers makes me happy. And I can afford to do it at $12 a pop or $10 a pop, but I cannot afford to do something like this at, say, $50 to $80 a pop. And most other people can't do that either. So if you're collecting on a budget and you're happy with what you're getting, what difference does it make what other people are thinking about it? If you want to spend, let's say 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400. If I was picking these up out of Boker line, it'd probably be about $350. They do not have all of these different patterns. I think Boker makes 3 or 4 knives in tortoiseshell. Case makes nothing in tortoiseshell. So what are my options if I'm going to be collecting knives in tortoiseshell? Same thing with white smoothbone. I've got like 3 knives in white smoothbone from USA makers. They cost extremely more than any of the knives out of China. The quality of the steel is not that much more significant, and the quality of the bone on the handle is really not that much better either. So what am I paying for if I'm trying to collect a lot of knives in a particular type of handle material? Yes, when I can, I pick them up from USA makers, but the thing is the variety is lacking. But with these economy brands, the variety isn't lacking, the price is right, the quality's there. So why wouldn't I do it if it's something that I enjoy? I enjoy large toothpicks, I enjoy the tortoise shell. Why not pick it up? If your idea is I'm not going to buy a knife unless it has S30V steel in it, I get it. That's a parameter you have set for your collection, and I can appreciate that. That's the kind of steel you want in your knife, and so I would say more power to you. Great, you've set a parameter for what you want to collect. I have also set parameters for the kind of knives that I want to collect. I want to collect things in tortoiseshell. I want to collect large toothpicks. I want to experiment and find knives of all sorts of varieties. I cannot do that by limiting myself to just buying a knife made in the United States. For instance, where would that leave me when it comes to picking up military bayonets? Guess what? AK bayonets were not made in the United States, so I've got a Polish AK bayonet. I've got a Spanish Mauser bayonet. You know, those are never going to be made in the United States, and if they are, then they're cheap copies. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm willing to do this. It's not my first option. When I can, I will pick up a knife made in the United States, but I have absolutely no problem picking up what people refer to as Chinese junk, because quite frankly, the quality is there, the workmanship is there, and these kind of knives, even though they're being made in China, are keeping Americans employed because Americans are selling these things. So there you go. That's where I stand on this. I hope this explains a little bit. I guess this is a little bit longer than some of my answers, but it seemed like one of those questions that needed to be answered, and hopefully people can at least understand where I'm coming from. Have no problem with people who do not want to buy knives out of China. I have no problem with people who refuse to buy a knife using 440A stainless steel. You have set parameters, and I can appreciate those parameters. But for me, I don't see these as cheap. I don't see them as junk. What I see them is as a quality economy brand, especially when you're talking about Rough Rider and also marbles. And no one is paying me to tell you this. This is my opinion, and I'm sure other people have other opinions of these knives, and I can respect that too. In any case, thank you. Talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.